Brandon Boyd.
Brendan Boyd.
He's so lush.
I tell you what, to everybody, this is for everyone who might be listening, it was Brandon himself, right, that didn't want us on this Incubus tour. and I know this for a fact because, well, I don't know if it's a fact, I'm making it up, but because he told his brother to tell his sister's friends, auntie, uncle, who's so related to my...
There has always been a certain amount of antagonism between the English and the Celts. In the first 1,000 years or so of Britain's history, the island was invaded 3 times. First came the Romans, bringing hot baths and straight roads. Then came the Saxons, bringing new farming technology and the basis of the language we now call English. Finally, the French landed in Hastings in 1066, and the rest, so goes the cliché, is history. But by that time, the original native population of what became known as Britain, the Celts, had been forced by the Anglo-Saxons to leave their homes and flee. The invaders grabbed the best bit, now known as England, for themselves, and chased the people whose lands they were invading into the more remote, mountainous and inhospitable corners of the island. The areas they settled in are now known as Wales, Scotland and Cornwall. Think of Wales, and you might think of rain, rugby, choir singing, Charlotte Church, former Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, and Tom Jones. Tom was a bona fide 1960s pop sensation who stunned female audiences with his raw masculinity. If his singing style could be said to lack subtlety, this was nothing compared to what looked like a 12-inch lead pipe stuffed down his trousers. And for a while, if you thought of Wales and thought pop or rock, Tom Jones seemed to be the only name that came to mind. But then, during the 1990s, with the exception of Charlotte Church, a nightmare schoolgirl dominatrix with £1 million in her back pocket, Wales suddenly became hip. First came the Manic Street Preachers, then Feeder, Stereophonics and Super Furry Animals. And then, roaring out of the suburbs and straight into the pages of music magazines up and down the land, came everyone's favourite 6-piece new metal hot contenders from Pontypridd, Lostprophets. The band was formed in 1997 from the splinters of Public Disturbance, an earlier, post-hardcore outfit that already contained the nucleus of the group that would in the future set them on the road to international fame. This tightly bound central core was composed of 3 young men who had been friends since childhood: Ian Watkins, Lee Gaze and Mike Lewis. Ian was the drummer in Public Disturbance. Mike and Lee were its 2 guitarists. Ian was born in Merthyr, but moved to Pontypridd with his mum shortly after his dad died. His mum was a Black Sabbath fan, and rock music was a constant presence in the Watkins household. This legendary and notorious early 1970s hard rock group was supposed to be one of the darkest, most dangerous bands on the planet. Their early songs, artwork and album covers owed a good deal of their imagery to the equally legendary bad boy of Victorian anti-religion, Aleister Crowley. In real life, of course, Black Sabbath were not the harbingers of the coming apocalypse, but 4 working-class lads from the West Midlands of Britain who invented something even more powerful than any suburban antichrist: the heavy rock riff. Together with Deep Purple and the massively popular Led Zeppelin, whose guitarist Jimmy Page was also an enthusiast of Aleister Crowley, Sabbath gave birth to a genre of popular music that would inspire generations of guitar bands to come. Less fortunately, they also inspired a fashion for dirty flared jeans and grey trench coats, which, happily, were consigned to the rubbish bin of fashion history once punk rock came along. And somewhere between heavy metal and punk came the eventual inspiration for the new metal bands of the 1990s.